Well, I knew this would be a very hopeful, uplifting, promising discussion of death by fire, death by drowning. And what are the news stories that you're working on right now?
Yeah, I mean, so we're working on. We've been working on a number of things related to this debate. One is just tracking sort of where the neoconservatives are shaking out. People like the Kagans and Max Boot and so on and so forth, and how they're realigning in this presidential primary. But you're talking about we don't want to make it too negative a discussion. So I think there is definitely something happening at the grassroots level among younger people in the United States. I think that we've seen a tremendous youth turnout for like a Bernie Sanders, because I think that people under the age of, let's say, 35 do not have a whole lot of taste for what they've seen under the last couple of presidents. And I think part of that is that, think about it. If you were born, if you were a teenager today and maybe you're high school or junior high, you've never lived in an America that has not been at war in one way or another. You've never lived in an America that didn't think that it needed a gigantic NSA, mass intercepting phone calls, particularly ones made overseas. You've never lived in an America where there was really a strong economy, where a lot of jobs were being created, where there was a lot of opportunity for people. And you've never lived in an America where healthcare just wasn't insanely expensive. I think these younger people view the problems today as so tough and intractable that we need very strong, almost like political revolution, as Bernie Sanders says, or as any number of other people running would say. We need those big, strong systemic changes, more revolutionary style changes. And I think that group of young people is fueling movements. Like we see the Dreamer movement, and we see Fight for 15, and we obviously see the Palestinian Solidarity movement, which is very strong among young people, much stronger than older generations. And I think that those people are not going to stop, whether it's a President Trump or Cruz or Clinton or Bernie were to pull it out. I don't think any of these young people would decide that, it's time for us to, sit on our hands and accept all this, because they're living in an America, I think, that's fundamentally different than the America that people in older generations lived in. I think the challenges they face are unique, and they have all sorts of energy, and they have technology that wasn't available to previous generations. And I think those things will really shake up the political class in this country at some point. I think Donald Trump channeled a lot of that energy on the right this time among people who are highly dissatisfied. Bernie challenged a lot of people on the left who are highly dissatisfied, but I think it's only going to grow. There's no way that I don't think there's any way that this political energy that's fueling these movements for change is going to dissipate just based on time. I mean, it may to some extent, but I think there's a lot of underlying conditions that will bubble up into different things. We saw that with Occupy Wall Street. We saw that with the Black Lives Matter movement. And we're seeing it with the climate movement all over the world, the future of the earth itself. So I think that these movements are bigger and they're noisier than they were in the past. And I do think that they will impact the political environment at some point or another. And I don't think that somebody even like a President Clinton is entirely prepared to deal with them should they, rise to the level to where that they would actually impact the federal policy, congressional policy, and administration's policy. And I think that they would be forced to adapt as well. I mean, I think these social movements can be that strong. But I think it does take a lot of hard work, like, what you're doing and what we're doing to create those sorts of changes. But I think people should just realize that those things are out there. They do exist. And that the political class itself is not so strong in this country as it even was 10 years ago. I mean, there's record level of distrust in our institutions, record level number of people identify as independents, political independence. And I think that, in this election, we definitely saw a couple candidates channel that energy, but if it continues to grow, it may just, the cup might run it over, right? We may see the sort of tipping points that we hadn't seen in the past. And I think a lot of the work that we're doing here at The Intercept and sort of exposing government and corporate elites and exposing politicians and holding them accountable, hopefully, will contribute to those larger social changes.
That was really well said. And if you're young, you need to share this. If you're under 35, if you're over 35 and you know somebody under 35, you need to share this. I'm going to put links to how you could learn more about Zaid, where you could read him on The Intercept. But one thing you got to do is start following him on Twitter, because he's very active. He's really great at helping me get insights into where the news stories that I should be focusing in on thank you for being on our show. You've been a really great guest. Thank you.
Thanks.